If I was Sancho, the team I would pick would be Liverpool. It probably isn't the most natural choice because there isn't that sort of gaping hole in attack where he can fit in, but Liverpool really need another top forward.
Neymar said recently that players like this only come around every 20 years and that he's got Ballon d'Ors ahead of him. What do you think? Do you agree?
No.
You don't agree?
No.
He's on a rocket to the top, Haaland, and he'll go with whatever suits him, his father and Raiola. And if that's this summer, it'll be this summer.
Hello and welcome to Goals Preview Show. Today we're looking at the Champions League last 16 clash between PSG and Borussia Dortmund. Now Lucien Favre's men have a 2-1 lead from the first leg thanks to a brace from Erling Haaland, but is it going to be enough to see them through? To give us their opinion on the matter, I'm joined by Peter Staunton. Hello.
Hello, Jay.
Sam Brown, how you doing?
Hello, mate.
And Miles Chambers.
Hi, Jay.
Wicked. I'll start with you because you're closest.
Okay.
Was this, players have, like world-class players, they have games where they've arrived on that stage. Is it too sweeping to say that for Haaland?
No, it's probably the best level opposition that he's played against in his career so far. It's one thing scoring 9 goals against the Honduras under-20s at the World Cup when everyone's on their summer holidays. It's another thing altogether when you're doing it, those big Champions League nights, scoring 2 goals against one of the most expensively assembled teams in the world. I think it's fair to say a lot of people got their first look at Erling Haaland in the first leg, and they will be very impressed with what they saw.
And the goals as well, like especially that second goal.
It was phenomenal, wasn't it? So powerful, straight in the top corner. And he scored a lot in the group stages, didn't he, for Salzburg? But he's really taken that next step. As Pete says, it's the first real big-ticket game he's had, and he really did shine.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned the goals he scored for Salzburg there. I've got a stat as well. 46 minutes. He has scored a goal in the Champions League every 46 minutes, which is the highest ranking for any player who's played more than 200 minutes.
It's more frequent than the buses here.
I don't think that's just limited to here. I think that's pretty much everywhere. But that's amazing though, isn't it, really?
Yeah, how long is it going to last? You know, I need a season's worth of 46 minutes to make it a real stat.
But that's an interesting point you make about how long it's going to last, because already he scored 7 goals, I think, in his first 3 Bundesliga matches once he moved to Germany, and have begun to dry up just a little bit. I think he's got 2 in the following 5. And you know, he's making the same type of runs, but defenders are tracking him better. And he's just not getting the same type of space to manoeuvre in. So already he's a marked man when it comes to the opportunities he's getting within the Bundesliga.
That's why in the first PSG match, my favourite goal was actually his first one, because that was a proper striker's goal. You've got to fight to get those.
Just react.
Yeah, you've got to fight for it. But like the second goal was just wonderful technique, foot like a traction engine, amazing. But a little bit of tighter spacing from the defenders, and that chance isn't there. But he fought for that first one, and that's what great strikers are about. I think that's the difference.
I think it's with Haaland. He doesn't fit the stereotype of his body type. If you get me, he moves like a small striker in terms of his anticipation and knowing where the ball is going to end up and the runs that he makes in behind. He doesn't play like an Ibrahimovic, 6'5", and whatever weight he is. He plays like a small man. And I think that's to his advantage, because I think it deceives defenders a lot of the time, where they expect they're going to be in for just a physical battle, hold them off, winning headers, things like that. But it's not like that at all. He's a proper poacher.
As literally before we sat down to record this, it's been announced that the game is now going to be being played behind closed doors. How much of a difference is that going to make for PSG?
I think it always helps to have fan support. I know if you look at, for example, the Liverpool-Atletico game, everyone's talking about, oh, wait until they get them back to Anfield, the atmosphere at that game, and the difference that might be able to make for the Liverpool team going up against Atletico. Now, PSG don't have anything like the same sort of fanaticism throughout the stadium that Liverpool have, but you're removing one key element of the match by taking away the supporters. Now, I know there's been a little bit of a dispute recently between some of the ultras who stand behind the goal and Kylian Mbappe and some of the other players. They're not impressed with the effort or maybe the attitude that some of those guys have. So it might be a relief to have those supporters out of the way, so the PSG players can work maybe without that sort of criticism from the stands. But you know, when it gets late on in a game and teams are knocking on the door and you're looking for that extra goal, that fan pressure can really help.
What do you think about that? Because there has been a lot made of the relationship between the PSG players, specifically Neymar and Mbappe, and the fans. Do you think that it gives them a bit of a breath of fresh air, if you like?
No, I think the idea of having your fans there it's just that potential for that 12th man. And it's, obviously I'm not a professional footballer, and I have played in front of many. No, I'm not. Wow. I've played in many an empty stadium though. So I think it'll be a different experience for a lot of them. It could, you know, if they're not careful, feel like a training match. So they've got to be on it from the very start, whether they've got the mindset to really power through that for a full 90 minutes. I don't know, but I quite like the idea of being able to hear what the players are saying.
I suspect it'll help them. I think it'll help PSG because of their history, because they've had so much struggles in the Champions League and in Europe. I think in a sense, what we saw with Manchester United last season, where everyone expected them to win that second leg, they're at home. It wasn't like the remontada a few years back where they were away. They had the lead, obviously having won at Old Trafford. I think in a way it might actually help them certainly settle into the groove. Like you talk about it being a bit like a training session. Well, actually, I reckon PSG in a training session would be pretty good. Like they have some very talented players there, and it might just take the edge off a little bit for a team that will be very nervous at this point.
Because this is the barrier they keep hitting as well, isn't it? With this particular round in the Champions League, maybe it could be the.
Well, there's been different aspects to the failure down throughout the years. It's never been any one thing. If I suppose there's one consistent in the past 2 seasons has been that Neymar has not been fit at this time of the year. Now there was a bit of injury and illness earlier on, and there was a bit of a dispute between the medical staff and Neymar about his fitness in the run-up to the first leg when he wanted to play the matches that he was scheduled to sit out. But crucially, they do have him fit. And when you're looking at the, let's call them the difference makers within the squads, you're looking at Haaland, you're looking at Sancho, players like that, and on the other side you're looking at Mbappe. Neymar, on his day, is, for me, the 3rd best player in the world. So having him fit, ready to go, and trying to do something that's never been done for PSG before, I think that that's going to be a crucial difference maker.
How often does Neymar have his day, though?
Well, you spoke about the remontada.
Yeah.
So that was like 3 years ago?
Well, I'm telling you, he can be a difference maker in games like this, and he hasn't had the opportunity at this stage of the competition, probably since the remontada.
I think he got judged quite heavily in that first leg, but he was coming back from injury, wasn't he? He wasn't quite fresh, and he still scored.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think at home, I think with finally having that chance to be in that second leg, because he's been in a second leg for PSG yet now. So it was a real moment for him, and I think he is a player who does turn up on big occasions, probably not as consistently as your Messis or your Ronaldos, but they're freaks really in football. He still does turn up a lot of the time.
Looking at the result from the first leg, 2-1, I mean, on paper it's not the worst result for PSG.
I think it was a good result for them. You look at their performance and how good Dortmund really were at attacking and the sort of dominance that they showed against a very talented team. I think it's a good result. They got an away goal. They are scoring consistently at home. I think it's 3 months now since they didn't score at least 3 goals at home in any matches. I think it's like 8 matches that's across, and 7 of those matches they scored at least 4 goals. So they're a team that are really free scoring at home. Dortmund do not have the best defence. You know, they're not bad defenders, but they have been leaking goals at times this season. So I think PSG is really there for the taking, and they kind of have to win this. I think they'll score at least 2 or 3, and then it'll be up to whether they can stop Dortmund from scoring.
In PSG, they don't vary how they play. If they showed it in the group stage against Real Madrid, it doesn't matter who they're against. If they're playing Troyes in Ligue 1, and if they're playing Real Madrid, they'll try and circulate the ball the exact same way. They'll hold on to it. They'll have 70% of the possession if they can, making chances in behind for Mbappe, through balls from Neymar, circulating the ball back through Verratti. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. Their game is what it is. And what will define this particular tie is if they can avoid mistakes in defence and not give up any easy chances, and if they're clinical once it comes up front. And with Icardi and Cavani, you're talking about 2 of the most expert penalty box strikers in the Champions League.
You mentioned Verratti there. He's going to be absent from this game, along with Meunier as well. How much of a loss? They've got a couple of players out, but that absence of Verratti, how much of a difference is that going to make?
I think a big difference. Again, it's just that big time. Actually, do you know what? I've changed my mind. I don't think it'll make any difference.
Can I shock you?
Was it because you said that Verratti was big and then you realised that he's actually quite short?
And then I've just decided in my head that he's actually the root cause of most of their issues.
He's been there, ever present in that failure period. Hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's never shone in those must-win matches.
So if it's not been working, change it up.
Change it up? What do you think?
I agree. I very much agree. I think that they've got that solid front sort of 4 of attackers to pick from, and they've got a defence that's decent. It's not amazing, but they've got some decent players. Pete mentioned Marquinhos in there, for example. I don't think they'll have a problem in midfield with Verratti being out, really. I
do think Meunier is a big loss, because you lose a lot when you lose he's not a full-back. When you lose a wing-back like him, and you have to put in Thilo Kehrer, probably play from the right-back position, but he's not a right-back either. He's a centre-back by trade who just happens to be filling in there. And I think when PSG are looking for those overloads, you look at the characteristics of their full-backs, of their wing-backs. You got Bernat on one side and Meunier on the other. It's all about getting more width to make sure that Mbappe and Neymar have the space they need to work in those dangerous channels, getting closer to the box. And I think you take Meunier out of that team, it does make a difference. It'd probably make more of a difference Meunier being out than it would Verratti.
Interesting. Playing alongside Haaland is Sancho. Neymar said recently that players like this only come around every 20 years and that he's got Ballon d'Ors ahead of him. What do you think? Do you agree?
No.
You don't agree?
No.
He's not good enough to do that, do you think?
No. I don't think he is going to win a Ballon d'Or.
Okay.
I don't think within 2 years he'll be one of the starting wingers for England. I think he'll be up there. I think Hudson-Odoi will become a better player than Sancho.
Is he not already a starting winger for England, would you not say?
Only he is, but I think in 3 years they'll have lost that spot.
Oh, right, okay.
I think Hudson-Odoi is a better player. Haaland is obviously, Sancho is obviously ahead in his development, and game time for Hudson-Odoi will just help him move forward. I think Sancho is really good, but I don't think he's a Ballon d'Or worthy player. But then again, we don't really know what Ballon d'Or worthy players are now because we're still in that readjustment stage from the Messi and Ronaldo era. But I think Mbappe is a far better player. I think Mane, Salah are far better players. So Sancho's really good, but he's got a long, long way to go to be even considered a Ballon d'Or player.
I think it's probably a little bit disingenuous for Neymar to suggest he's going to win all these Ballon d'Ors. I think, as you mentioned, like Messi and Ronaldo is one thing where two players dominate. We're not going to see that going forward. We're going to see different trios in that final three every single year. But he certainly will be in contention as long as he doesn't fall off the planet, really. You know, as long as he stays fit, doesn't get injured. I can see him once he joins a real top club. And Dortmund are a big club, but you know, at the end of the day, they're a machine to sell on and make more money elsewhere. Once he makes that move, he could be next level.
The only caveat that I would add is there's been a couple of fallings out behind the scenes at Dortmund this season. We know that, where maybe he's been late to training, late to team meetings. Those little issues need to be addressed because the best players in the world, it's been a long time since the best players in the world got away with missing a day of training the same way Ronaldinho used to do, for example. With Sancho, some of the question marks over him have been over maybe his application and his consistency. There's no doubt about the talent whatsoever. But, you know, having talent in football is a bit like having a voice on X Factor. Everyone's got a voice. Everyone in football has talent. And what separates the ones who go on to win the Ballon d'Or then is ethos, it's application, it's consistency.
And trophies.
And trophies at the end of the day. And if Sancho can't add that ethos to his game, then he's going to have a difficulty maintaining the level that his talent deserves him to take him to.
Mario Balotelli is probably a good example of the direction you could end up going if you don't have that same application, if you don't have that maturity and the right behaviour. Like, he was a fantastically talented teenager, wasn't he, Balotelli? Put up these massive numbers for these early clubs, but it never really blossomed.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of seasons here and there with Nice and whoever, but...
So I always like the example of, or the comparison of Ronaldo and Rooney.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, Ronaldo obviously was just the ultimate professional. He was purely about being the very best. Rooney, I think, was a far more naturally talented footballer, but didn't have the same sort of desire to be the best, and it's borne out in their respective careers. Rooney still had a great career, unbelievable, but he could have been so much better.
We've been talking about Sancho a little bit, and there's been an awful lot of talk about Sancho and where he's going to end up in the summer. Where do we think he's going to go?
I think he will leave Dortmund. The price will be high, so that will put a lot of clubs off. So if you're looking at maybe €120 million, £100 million, it's going to be difficult for a lot of clubs to compete. But I just have a sneaking feeling that Man United, Ed Woodward, might just see the stars in his eyes and think that's going to be the, I don't know, the franchise players, they might call it in the NFL, that could take United through for the next 10 years.
It's going to be a proper squabble between the Premier League's big teams to try and get him. I think if I was Sancho, the team I would pick would be Liverpool. I think Liverpool is a perfect fit for him. It probably isn't the most natural choice because there isn't that sort of gaping hole in attack where he can fit in, but Liverpool really need another top forward. Like their first choice at the moment when you bring someone off the bench is like Origi, and even Minamino, you know, he's not someone who's at that next level the same way someone like Sancho is. They kind of do really need that fourth forward to rotate a little bit. If someone gets injured, to cover you. They've got quite lucky with their attacking injuries, really. They've had some issues in midfield, a lot of issues in defence, even issues in goal, but they've miraculously avoided attacking issues. If they experience that next season, then we're not going to see the same level of performances and results we've seen this season. So, and you know, just imagine if you're Sancho as well, you're going to be joining the best team in England, probably the best team in the world right now, team that could go quite far in the Champions League, just won it obviously this season. A manager under Klopp who gets the best out of players consistently. I think he should definitely move for that, if Liverpool wanted him.
If you're trying to convince Sancho to go to Liverpool over Man United though, and you're talking about being involved in a rotation system, rather than like you said at United where he would be the guy, he would be the franchise like star, is that maybe a harder sell, if you like?
I mean, it depends what his priorities are. At the end of the day, a lot of players, the decision they make will be based on money, and Liverpool would pay him just as much, maybe a little bit less than Man United, but I'm not sure how the wage structure works. But he would be on a preposterous amount of money, whatever team he goes and joins. He's not going to settle for anything less than a massive amount of money. Maybe if he wants to be the star, then Man United would make sense, but a lot of players at Man United will want to be the star. I think it might appeal to him to be a star, one of the first names on the team sheet in Liverpool. Like, if they tried to sign him, I think they would make the case that you'll be one of our top players. You have to fight for your place. It's not a given, but you'll be one of them.
I think it's the wrong play. I think it's the wrong signing for Liverpool, because you're essentially pushing one of Salah or Mane out the team.
Aren't they going to be moving on eventually anyway, though?
Well, they're still only 27, aren't they? They've got at least 3 years of 100% guaranteed prime. Mane appears to be a player that can have a 13-month season and then play pretty much every single game the season after. Sancho would find himself on the bench. He'd be the first sub, but he needs to be the guy, because Mbappe is the guy. He needs to be that person.
So, what do you think, United?
I think he will probably end up at United because they need another, ideally wide right player. I love the idea of him doing a bit of a tour of Europe, though, because English players very rarely do that. He's done Germany and is taking it by storm. So, go and join Real, go and join Barca, go and join Juve, and have a cultural, just world tour. As long as you like to move around Europe, of course. I think it'll be really good for his development and will set him aside as a very different player.
I've never even really considered that as a notion. Whenever there's been all this talk about Sancho, it's just the assumption for me is that he would be going back to England.
I do think he will go back to England, yeah. I don't think there's a doubt about that. But it has been the trend over the past 3 or 4 seasons, well, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, of young English talent leaving, and mostly for the Bundesliga in search of first-team football. With Reece Nelson doing it, Rabbi Matando's gone out there as well, and countless other examples that have gone to Germany to get that development stage in that they just can't get at Premier League clubs anymore. And I don't think it was any big secret for Sancho. I think you talk to anybody off the record at Dortmund, they'll tell you that he's going to be here for a good time, not a long time. So long as they make a nice bit of money back on him, I think they'll be happy enough. The same thing with Haaland. It's clearly a development step for him. He's not going to be a 10-year striker for Borussia Dortmund. He's there so they can make some money off him. Same way they had that with Mkhitaryan, Dembele, Mario Götze, Kagawa. That's the type of club that it is.
For me, I think with Haaland, obviously a lot of people are talking about him potentially being linked with Manchester United. I can't see him going anywhere this summer.
Because of the Roy Keane dad issue.
Well, for me, maybe that's part of it. But for me, the main thing is
I thought his dad was Alf-Inge Haaland.
His dad is Alf-Inge Haaland. Alf-Inge Haaland.
It's true. Yeah.
But because of the tackle and because of the beef, I thought that's why he wouldn't go to United.
I think that would be water under the bridge, really. For me, the main issue would be the fact that he's just joined Dortmund. Dortmund will probably just sign him to an extension in the summer and say, here's a load more money. Yeah, we're going to increase your transfer clause fee, but you're getting a lot of money for this.
No, I reckon they'll say to Dortmund, we'd like to Dortmund will say, we'd like to increase your transfer release fee, and Raiola and his dad will go, no.
They're paying him more money.
Dortmund have absolutely no chance of controlling his future. For me, he's effectively freelance. When he says he wants to go, he's going. Dortmund do not have any stake in him other than taking whatever portion of the transfer fee Mino Raiola tells them they're going to take.
Do you see him going this summer then? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how long did he last at? He didn't even last a year at Molde. He didn't even last a year at Salzburg. He's on a rocket to the top, Haaland, and he'll go with whatever suits him, his father, and Raiola. And if that's this summer, it'll be this summer.
So where will he go then?
Anywhere he wants. He's going to be one of the best strikers in the world.
Yeah, granted,
Barcelona.
Because of that, you've got a finite number of options.
Barcelona's got to be the place.
Barcelona need a centre forward. Karim Benzema is 32. He'll be 33 before the season's over. Any of the clubs in England would have him.
Yes, that is true. But I mean, from his perspective, and obviously we know that he's second generation football as well, so it's not like he and his family are new to the process. Do you not think another year at Dortmund would be good for his own development?
I think the self-belief that he has, it doesn't matter that he's I don't think he thinks of it as a stage in his development. He probably thinks he's already arrived. So if he's playing with Dortmund, he could probably, if he thinks he can do the business with Dortmund, he thinks he could do the business in any club in Europe, and justifiably so.
Interesting. When I saw this fixture, and based on what I saw from the first leg as well, you've got two giant all-stars on both teams. If you could, and you had the whim of the world to do so, where do you rank them in terms of your priorities? Who are you taking first?
I can do the top four, my four at least,
Please,
straight
Dan.
off the bat.
Go on.
Mbappe first. He's just levels above the other guys at the moment and more consistently. Then I'd go Haaland, because a number 9 striker is a rare commodity these days, especially one who is so young, powerful, and seemingly great with both feet. The full package. Then I'd have Sancho.
Even though apparently you don't like Sancho.
I didn't say that. I didn't say he's not going to win it. I just said he's not going to win a Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, I know.
You little word twister. And then I would have Neymar, a good few levels below, because he's 28. Danny Ings, Alvaro Morata.
I wasn't expecting Danny Ings to be the next word.
Younger than Neymar. So he's practically over the hill in football terms. And if I'm having one of those 4 players in my club, I want them for the future and rather than the past and marketing.
Interesting. What about you two? What do you think?
For me, I'd put Mbappe top, same as Sam. I think he's probably the most valuable player in the world at the moment. His transfer fee was, I think it's 180 million euros after add-on a couple of years ago, and now it would be the world record if he joined any other club. So he's the top for me. He's such a fantastic player, so consistent. Then I would probably put Neymar, actually, just because, for a purely subjective reason, I would love to play with Neymar. Or if this is a team I was managing, I would love to watch him on my team.
I'd love to play with Neymar as well, if I'm honest.
So I would pick him second, purely for that sort of, not really, I mean, he would be a bit of a liability at times, let's be honest, on and off the pitch.
One in 2 chance of him actually turning up that day.
Are you talking yourself out of this?
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not. I'm convincing myself, if anything. Like, my favourite Newcastle player of the last decade is Hassan Ben Arfa, who was missing half the time, but he turned up and scored some incredible goals, and it was just worth it for those moments. So he'd be my second choice, and then it would probably be Haaland, and then it would probably be Sancho. But
It sounds like you don't care about the Dortmund players.
They're just afterthoughts compared
just
to the other
Haaland
two.
and
Even the way
Sancho.
you swept your hand away as well.
Get under the rug.
What do you think, Pete?
If you're giving me a blank check and asking me to sign these 4 players in order for my club, what I would do is I'd sign Mbappe first, then I'd sign Haaland, then I'd sign Sancho, and then I'd sign Neymar.
You agree with Sam?
Yeah, I
You
did.
don't tend to agree with Sam. Why?
Right, because I'm looking at, it's not just these players I like, obviously, because Neymar's got more talent than the other 3. That's for sure. But I'm thinking what goes into a signing, how long you want them to be at your club, the transfer value that they might retain, their current level versus their potential level. And I think on all those metrics, Mbappe checks out first and Neymar checks out last.
We've looked at how we would rank the players. How do we see the actual tie going? What do you think is going to happen?
I think Dortmund will score. I think PSG will score more and go through.
Okay, one more than you. What do you think?
I'm going to say 3-2 on the night to PSG. Dortmund to go through on away goals.
Okie dokie.
I think 4-1. 4-1 or 4-2, I'm sort of in and out in between them, but I do think PSG will score quite a few goals, and it'll just be a case of if they can stop Dortmund scoring so much that they can win on away goals.
That's a smashing though. 4-1.
It's a smashing, but I think they have the attack to do it. And Dortmund don't have the strong enough defence to stop it, per se. I think one of the big factors, we've talked about it already, but how much of a difference the absence of fans will make in the match will be very interesting. And it certainly is a bit of a curveball for a match that otherwise I was quite confident that PSG would sweep them aside. As I said earlier, I think that it might actually help them, but we'll see.
We'll see. Well, thank you very much for coming in today, guys. I enjoyed our
Thank you for
chat.
having us.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Joe.
So, what do you think? Do you agree? Are Dortmund going through? Are PSG going through? Thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can get updates of all our upcoming video content, and enjoy the game. Bye-bye.